Hannibal did not begin his war against Rome on a battlefield. He began it with a decision. Spain was not Rome. It was wild, distant, unstable, and easy to overlook. Roman senators sat in marble halls, arguing about trade routes, governors, and taxes, convinced that true danger could only come from the civilized East or from within Italy itself. To them, the West was a barbarian frontier. But Hannibal understood something Rome did not. Power does not announce itself where it is expected. It grows in the shadows. For years he prepared in silence. Deep in the rugged hills of Hispania, he forged an army unlike any Rome had ever faced. These were not legions drilled in uniformity. They were a chaos of nations, Africans hardened by desert warfare, Iberian infantry raised in constant tribal conflict, Balearic slingers who could crack a skull from 100 paces, and the Numidian cavalry, riders who moved faster than a Roman command could even be shouted. They did not share a language, a culture, or even loyalty to Carthage itself. What bound them together was Hannibal's will, and their absolute belief that following him meant survival. He carried an old hatred. It was a fire that had never gone out. As a child of 9, Hannibal had been brought before the sacrificial altar by his father, the great Hannibal Barca. Amidst the smoke and the smell of blood, he was forced to place his hand on the beast and swear an oath to hate Rome forever, to never be a friend to the Republic. It was not a symbolic gesture. Hannibal treated it as an instruction for life. He studied Roman patterns. He dissected Roman arrogance. He understood their fatal flaw, their absolute certainty that no enemy would ever again dare to bring war directly onto Italian soil. Rome believed distance was their shield. Hannibal believed distance was an illusion. When he finally moved, it was not with a diplomatic declaration of war. It was with speed. He left Spain with an army that, by all logic, should not have survived the journey. Tens of thousands of men began the march north. The supplies were limited. The terrain was hostile. Allies were uncertain. Every step forward meant leaving his lifeline further behind. Hannibal accepted this. He understood that an army does not win by remaining safe and intact. It wins by arriving where it is impossible to exist. Resistance appeared almost immediately. Wild tribes attempted to block his path. Others tested his strength, looking for weakness. Hannibal responded without hesitation. Resistance was crushed with brutal efficiency. Cooperation was rewarded just enough to keep the road open. He did not linger. He did not conquer territory to keep it. Momentum mattered more than land. As the army pushed deeper into hostile lands, exhaustion set in. Hunger became a constant companion. Discipline began to fracture. The whisper of mutiny moved through the ranks like a disease. Hannibal did not answer with speeches from a high podium. He answered by marching at the front. He slept on the same hard ground, shared the same stale bread, and endured the same biting cold. Then came the Alps. To the ancient world, these mountains were not just an obstacle. They were a wall built by the gods. The ascent was a nightmare. Cold killed men faster than any sword. Horses slipped on the ice and vanished silently into bottomless ravines. Supplies froze solid. Rock slides buried entire units in an instant. The great war elephants, monsters of the warm plains, died slowly, one by one, gasping in the thin air. Guides betrayed them. Locals attacked from the cliffs above, rolling boulders down onto the struggling column. At times, survival seemed impossible. Yet Hannibal did not turn back. He pointed to the peaks and promised them Italy. Each day the army grew smaller, but it also grew harder. The weak died. The hesitant vanished. By the time they descended into the green valleys of Italy, they were no longer a traditional force. They were survivors shaped by suffering. They were ghosts who had walked through death to get there. Rome did not panic. Why should they? They were the masters of the Mediterranean. At first, Hannibal was dismissed as a nuisance, a problem that would solve itself. Roman commanders laughed. They believed the winter would finish him. They believed Italy would swallow him. They believed Rome could afford to make mistakes. The first mistake came at the river Trebia. Roman forces rushed to engage, confident in their discipline and superior numbers. They were eager for glory. Hannibal used their eagerness against them. He allowed them to cross the freezing, chest-deep waters of the Trebia. By the time the Romans reached the other side, they were frozen, hungry, and disorganized. Then the trap snapped shut. Hannibal's well-fed, warm troops struck. His cavalry hammered the flanks. Hidden infantry surged from the tall grass behind the Roman lines. The Roman line collapsed under confusion and cold. Thousands died, their blood turning the icy river red. Rome explained it away. Bad leadership, unfortunate weather, nothing more. It was a fluke. Then came Lake Trasimene. This time Hannibal did not offer a battle at all. He offered a slaughter. He chose the ground, the timing, and the weather. A thick, supernatural fog covered the lake. Roman legions, led by the impatient consul Flaminius, marched blindly into a narrow corridor between the hills and the water. They didn't know Hannibal's eyes were watching from the mist. The attack came from everywhere at once. There was no time to form lines, no time to issue orders, no retreat. The Roman army was pushed into the water and cut down where they stood. The water of the lake turned so dark with blood that it looked like wine. 15,000 Romans died in hours. Now, Rome felt something new. Not fear, humiliation. The war was no longer theoretical. Hannibal was not reacting to Rome. He was shaping Rome's decisions. He was burning their fields, sacking their towns, and humiliating their generals. Panic began to rise, not among the common people, but among those who understood that their existence was at stake. Rome answered with instinct. More legions, more aggression, a desperate demand for a decisive battle to wipe this stain away. Only one man resisted, Fabius Maximus. While the Republic screamed for blood, Fabius demanded restraint. He understood that Hannibal was a master of the battlefield, so he refused to give him one. He shadowed Hannibal. He cut supply lines. He blocked mountain passes. He watched from the high ground. He allowed time to become his weapon. Rome despised him for it. They called him a coward. They mocked him in the streets. But Hannibal respected him. Fabius was dangerous, not because he attacked, but because he denied Hannibal the one thing he needed: Roman recklessness. So Hannibal waited. He burned the countryside, trying to provoke a fight. Eventually, Rome removed patience from power. Pride returned to command. The Republic decided to end it once and for all. They assembled the largest army Rome had ever fielded in its history. 8 legions, massive allied contingents, nearly 80,000 men. It was not simply an army, it was Rome's confidence made flesh. The ground shook when they marched. They believed size would crush Hannibal. They believed sheer weight and pressure would force him to break. They believed tradition guaranteed victory. Hannibal knew better. He chose his ground near a dusty small village called Cannae. Open terrain, flat land. It looked like suicide. It was perfect for the massive Roman infantry to steamroll his smaller force. Or so it appeared. Hannibal arranged his forces carefully, not to resist the Roman advance, but to shape it. He placed his weakest troops in the center, inviting the Romans to push forward. He placed his veterans on the wings. The night before the battle, Hannibal did not speak of glory. He adjusted formations. He positioned his cavalry. He ensured that every unit, from the lowest infantryman to the highest captain, understood exactly what they had to do. Across the field, Roman soldiers slept confidently. They had the numbers. They had the discipline. They believed Hannibal was finally cornered. They did not realize they were already inside the trap. When the sun rose over Cannae, 2 armies faced one another. One believed it could not lose. The other knew exactly how Rome would try to win. Hannibal was ready. When the battle began, the Roman infantry did exactly what Hannibal wanted. Packed tightly, shield to shield, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers pushed forward with overwhelming force. Their objective was simple: crush the Carthaginian center and end the war in a single, decisive blow. Hannibal's central line began to fall back under the pressure. To the Romans, it looked like victory. They pressed harder. What they did not realize was that they were walking into a trap. As the Roman mass surged forward, Hannibal's weakest troops deliberately retreated, bending inward but never breaking. The Roman formation followed, compressing itself further and further, convinced the enemy line was collapsing. Then the battlefield changed. On both flanks, Hannibal's African infantry, veteran soldiers armed with captured Roman weapons, suddenly advanced. They did not charge. They closed in, methodically, relentlessly. The Roman center, now deep inside the Carthaginian formation, was struck from both sides. At the same moment, Carthaginian cavalry achieved total dominance. Hannibal's horsemen shattered the Roman cavalry early in the fight, driving them from the field. Once the Roman flanks were exposed, the cavalry wheeled around and attacked the infantry from the rear. The Roman army was now surrounded on all sides. One of the most remarkable moments of the battle came from the Numidian cavalry. Around 500 Numidian riders had thrown down their weapons and pretended to surrender. Believing them harmless, the Romans allowed them behind their lines. Hidden beneath their armor, the Numidians carried short swords. At the most critical moment of the battle, they drew them and attacked from within, cutting tendons, stabbing from behind, and tearing discipline apart. The encirclement was complete. There was no room to maneuver, no space to retreat. Roman soldiers were packed so tightly that many could not even raise their arms to defend themselves. The killing became systematic. Hour after hour, the Carthaginian forces closed inward, compressing the Roman mass into silence. The battle lasted most of the day. By the end, the scale of destruction was unprecedented. Ancient sources differ on exact numbers, but the outcome is clear. Polybius estimates around 70,000 Roman dead. Livy places the number between 40 and 50,000. Either way, it was one of the bloodiest single days in military history. The Roman consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus, wounded during the fighting, refused to flee. He remained on the field and died alongside his soldiers. The other consul, Gaius Terentius Varro, escaped with a small remnant of cavalry. The Roman army was annihilated. Cannae had ended, but the killing did not feel like victory. And now, the road to Rome lay open. Hannibal's cavalry commander, Maharbal, understood this immediately. Roman defenses were thin. Panic would already be spreading through the city. Fear would do more damage than walls ever could. According to tradition, Maharbal urged Hannibal to march at once. "Give me the cavalry," he said, "and in 5 days you will dine on the capital." Hannibal did not answer. He had destroyed the greatest army Rome had ever assembled, but he did not move. Later, Maharbal is said to have spoken the words that would echo through history. "The gods do not grant everything to one man. Hannibal, you know how to win a battle, but not how to use victory." Whether spoken exactly this way or not, the meaning remains. Hannibal stayed where he was. He allowed his army to rest. He allowed Rome to breathe. And Rome did something no one expected. Rome did not surrender. There was a reason Rome survived long enough to refuse surrender. Before Cannae, Quintus Fabius Maximus had already shown how Hannibal could be stopped, not by defeating him, but by exhausting him. Fabius avoided battle, shadowed Hannibal from the high ground, blocked passes, disrupted supply lines, and harassed foraging parties. No glory, no decisive clash, just pressure. Hannibal could win battles, but he could not replace men. Rome hated Fabius for it. After Cannae, Rome finally understood him. Survival had become the strategy. The news of Cannae reached the city like a death sentence. There were no speeches, no cries of revenge. For the first time in generations, Rome was quiet. Families locked their doors. Women mourned openly. The Senate gathered in near silence. Yet even now, surrender was never seriously considered. Rome did not think like other states. To Rome, defeat in battle was not the end of war. It was a condition to be endured. The Republic had lost armies before. What it refused to lose was itself. Mourning was limited by law. Panic was treated as treason. New legions were raised from boys and old men alike. Slaves were promised freedom. Criminals were armed. Sacred gold was melted down to pay for weapons. Rome closed ranks, not to defeat Hannibal, but to survive him. Hannibal, meanwhile, waited. He expected Rome's allies to defect. Some did, most did not. Rome's system of control and obligation held firm. Italian cities watched Cannae and still chose Rome. Slowly, the truth became clear. Hannibal could destroy Roman armies, but he could not break Rome itself. He had no siege equipment, no secure supply lines, no reinforcements from Carthage. Every day in Italy made his legend grow, but his strength shrink. Rome understood this. The Republic no longer sought glory. It avoided Hannibal. It bled him. It waited. Cannae proved one thing beyond doubt. Here Hannibal was the greatest battlefield commander Rome had ever faced. But war was no longer decided only on the battlefield. It had become a test of endurance. Hannibal stood at the gates of Rome in spirit, but the city refused to open them. And from the ashes of Cannae, a new kind of Roman began to rise. One who did not rush, one who did not panic, one who learned from Hannibal himself. His name was Scipio, and the war was far from over. We have reached the end of another journey, through the dusty pages of history, but the whispers of the past never cease. Subscribe to stay with us on this mysterious voyage.